I can't fit them all inside my OJ, so I just take half and bust them out. I give the rest to Master G so he can shock the house. It was 12 o'clock on one Friday night. I was rocking to the...
Hey guys, I'm Shane with Team Fly Halo, and I'm here with Chris of Super Fly. We're going to talk to you about how and why you should fly with the Reserve, as well as some of the techniques for deploying it. So the first question is, why fly with the Reserve? Some would argue that they don't fly high enough to use a Reserve. I've found that changing conditions can put you in a situation that you wouldn't expect, and that's the time that you're going to want that Reserve. So it's always cheap insurance to just fly with it. It's not that much of an inconvenience.
I've had to throw a Reserve a few times now, and one time it went out at 50 feet, so I would say there's nothing that's really constitutes being too low to use a Reserve.
Sure. So one of the big things about a Reserve on a paramotor is that most Reserves are weighted for free flight, so choosing the size of the Reserve is just as important as whether or not to fly with it.
I would say generally just get the biggest Reserve that you can manage. We kind of have a rule around here. We don't really sell Reserves that are smaller than 38 meters. We like Reserves that are 42 meters for people who are above 185 pilot weight. And then we also have 50 and 60 meter Reserves that are also very light and compact. And those are quite good for people who fly either sort of heavy or people who are flying trikes.
It's a good thing to pay attention to not just the weight range quoted by the manufacturer, but also the size. So area is your friend. Obviously, a 40-meter Reserve is going to bring you down slower than a 28-meter Reserve. So another problem on a paramotor is where to install it. We like to install it on the opposite side of the throttle hand so that that hand is clear in flight. So you can see we've installed this Yeti 40 with an outer container right on the left swing arm of this Parajet. And you can see the routing of the Y bridle goes up and where it connects onto the shoulder straps.
Okay, so when it's time to throw the Reserve, then the steps are, number one, if you think you need to throw it, you need to throw it. Look down there, watch your hand connect with the actual Reserve handle so that you're not grabbing something else that kind of seems like the Reserve handle. When you go to pull, it's an out, wiggle, wiggle sort of motion. We also recommend a Z sort of motion. As soon as it's separate like that, you can throw it out and back. Let go of the handle, realizing that you're going to lose the bag and the handle. They have to fly away and you have to let go, otherwise no magic happens. As soon as the Reserve's opening, then you have the job of disabling the glider. Quickly look up, grab your B risers, do a pull-up on the B's. That's the number one way to disable the glider. Number two, if by chance the reason you threw was that you had riser twist or some other associated problem, for example, if you were low, then you would just grab your brakes and take a few extra wraps on the brake. Hold down nicely. Watch the glider because you're trying to make it disable and come above head next to the round parachute. The two should be touching straight above head to have maximum benefit. You'll be hanging from your shoulders at that time, which will encourage a legs down, sort of forward, ready to do a nice parachute landing fall sort of configuration. And if that's not happening naturally, then you can go ahead and help. Knees together, feet together, elbows in, look up so that you don't see the ground coming. Look, grab, throw, let go, check to make sure it's opening, then disable the main. All right, here's your top list of reasons to throw the Reserve. Number one, you're landing behind some big object that's putting off a rotor. Say, engine out behind a row of trees or behind a building, or if you're flying your mountains, then you get blown to the wrong side of a mountain. In places like that, the Reserve's the best bet. Number two, if the tip is ever stuck in. Some people call it a cravat, but paragliders are a little bit prone to it when they're having malfunctions. If the tip's stuck in and you can't get it out, if you can't manage directional control, Reserve's your answer. Also, riser twist. If you happen to find yourself twisted up in the risers, unable to steer from above the twist or to solve the riser twist, if that happened to take place along with a tip that's stuck in, then you've got two great reasons to throw the Reserve. Add in spiral. Spirals can kind of take on a life of their own. The glider can kind of keep turning in ways that you don't want it to. If you really need to make it stop because you don't believe there's enough altitude to recover, and or if the G's are getting too high, then go ahead and get that Reserve out. It's a good bet. Finally, you've got your midair, get tangled up with somebody. There's no great feeling like having a second chance. There's no worse feeling than not having a Reserve. To that end, we strongly recommend that you get with your instructor, that you practice throwing the Reserve out a couple of times during your instruction. If for some reason a Reserve is not being recommended for you, then we strongly recommend that you do your own due diligence on the subject and make sure that you end up with Reserve on your motor.
Hey guys, wanted to thank you for checking out this extended Motor Minute. This one came about partially because of the kind of cluelessness that we observed online after a very popular video came out featuring a reserve pole and entanglement. That instance actually occurred a couple of years ago involving one of our instructors, and since we've been teaching, we've been pretty thorough about teaching how to deploy a reserve, how to disable, all these things that we feel are important. If you or a friend is seeking paramotor training, feel free to contact us at flyhalo.com. If you're already in the sport, make sure you're getting your reserve repacked and inspected on a yearly basis from Super Fly Paragliding. Thanks a bunch, guys.
To the scene. As she traveled deeper inside the room, all the fellas checked out her white ass shoe. She came up to the table, looked into my eyes, then she turned around and shook her behind. So I said to myself, it's time for me to release my vicious rhyme. I call my masterpiece, and now people in the house, this is just for you. A little rap to make your boogaloo. Now the group you hear is called Phase 2, and let me tell you something.